Hey podcaster, meet Acast. We're the top independent podcast network for creators in the know. We empower you to develop your podcast idea, find your audience, and grow listener relationships wherever those listeners are. You'll also find a whole range of ways to make money, from membership plans for paying fans to our fully curated and creative advertising experience. Visit acast.com/network to find out more. Acast, for the stories.
Nobody really knows what happens when you die. Some say it's an end. Others, a beginning. Some say you just keep going round and round until you get it right. One night, 4 people were driven by destiny, overtaken by fate, and ended up living the life of Riley. Thomas Riley.
Hello, welcome to Rewatchability, part of the Entertainment One podcast network. I'm J.M. McNabb, joined as always by
Robert Laronde.
And we have a very special guest again this week. It's one of the funniest writers on the internet, Lydia Bug. Hey, Lydia, how's it going?
Great. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you for being here. And I'm really excited about this show because we're going to be talking about a movie we've wanted to do for a long time. It's the 1993 Robert Downey Jr. comedy, Heart and Souls.
Yes. Oft forgotten when talked about, I feel like. When you talk about... I don't think a lot of people know this. So I was shocked when I said I wanted to do it. And you were like, oh, yeah, I love this growing up.
I'm watching it now. I think people do have a fondness for it, even though it doesn't get talked about that much. But before we get into it, I do want to thank our Patreon donors. If you go to patreon.com/rewatchability, you can donate a few bucks to help keep us going. You know, it's not just us; it's all of the ghosts that are encircling our lives. Patreon.com/rewatchability. And also, before we get into it, Lydia, I did want to ask you about a project you just worked on, because we are Canadian and therefore have to squeeze in references to Canadian content as much as
Maple
possible.
syrup.
You just worked on an issue of the Trailer Park Boys comic series.
Yes.
Whoa.
The very first issue, actually. I have a story in. It's an anthology comic, so it's not like the whole thing is me. But I have a 4-page story in the first one and a 5-page in the second, I believe.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah, it was really cool. They franchised it with Devil's Due Comics. And the editor that they brought in, I worked with at bunnyears.com when I was working for Macaulay Culkin on his weird goop.
The Page Master.
Yes, I worked for the Page Master. That's his favorite role.
Oh, really?
He likes to joke about that one a lot. So yeah, and then they brought in Sean from Bunny Ears, and then he asked if I wanted to write about the Trailer Park Boys, and I watched them growing up, actually. So even though I'm not from Canada, Midwesterners love the Trailer Park Boys because we also live in trailer parks. So, you know, we can relate.
I have never seen a Trailer Park Boy.
Really?
Am I going to get deported?
Yes.
Wait, you've never seen an episode?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, wow. I just assumed you would have.
Because I live in a trailer park? Wow.
No, because it seems like up your alley in terms of comedy. Like, I remember when I was in film school, they literally showed us episodes of Trailer Park Boys when we were talking about
This is how you do it, boys.
comedy. Yeah. Well, no, because it started out as like, with an independent filmmaker, and so that's great. So where do people go to check that out?
Trailerparkcomic.com if you want to order it. The first issue, I believe, is sold out. but they'll put the second one up there. And I think it doesn't come out in August. I believe it's out in September. The first issue was out July 21st, but it's probably in comic book shops still if we air this soon. So
Nice.
Yeah,
that's
for sure.
going to be my introduction to the Trailer Park Boys, is the comics.
it might be a good introduction because they're vignettes. So that's kind of a nice way to get introduced to something, I feel like.
I love vignettes.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. Well, let's get into Heart and Souls because, like I said, this was a big movie for us when we were younger, but not necessarily one that people talk about a lot today. But Lydia, you suggested doing it. Do you remember when the first time you saw it was?
Not exactly the first time because I watched it so much. I was one of those kids, like I have a learning disability. So part of it is I tend to fixate, especially on media. And I watched Mary Poppins 150 times when I was a kid because my dad was like, I'm just going to let her watch it until she gets sick of it. And I didn't. And then he just took it away. So Heart and Souls was one of those weird things where I was also like very, I wasn't allowed to consume a lot of media. My parents were trying really hard to keep me from seeing things that they, like that were rated PG-13 or whatever at the time. They felt were too mature. So, like, as a kid, I wasn't allowed to watch The Simpsons, but if it had Robert Downey Jr. in it, my mother was not going to deprive herself of that. So,
Wow.
Yeah. So she let me watch this movie and then bought it, so it was just in the house, and so I watched it, like, all the time, and then when I was in my 20s, I remembered it, and I showed it to my husband, and I was like, this was, like, one of my favorite movies as a kid, and he was like, this is not a children's movie. Like, why were you so obsessed with this? And it's kind of funny because I didn't know back then. I was like, I don't know why I liked it so much. And then rewatching it now in my very early 30s, I'm 32, I get it because I was an only child and I was super, like, I wanted attention all the time. And the idea of having, like, 4 people that have to pay attention to you all the time was my dream.
Right. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you, Rob? Did you see it when it first came out, or when did you see it?
I wasn't sure. The cover, I didn't have any memories, and the cover looked so familiar. I think we must have had the video, but I don't have any specific memories of watching it. But, we were talking about Charles Grodin because he passed away and this movie came up, so I was just amped to see it and, have some more of that Grodin juice. I don't know.
That does not sound right.
No.
What a terrible memorial.
I don't think he would be happy that I memorialized him like that, He would be frowning and his brow would be furrowed. No. So, yeah, I never saw it. This was the first time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But, yeah.
I think I couldn't remember if it was you or Blaine who said that they loved this movie as a kid. I think it was Blaine, but he's not here, so we'll skip over him. I watched it when it came out on video. I don't know why I didn't see it in the theater because I remember seeing the trailer in the theater a lot, and it looked like a lot of fun. I think that song, like the Frankie Valli song, was in the trailer a lot.
Right.
I love that song.
It's a great trailer song.
Yeah.
And also, it was in Mrs. Doubtfire too, right? Like that song had a big,
for sure,
couple of years there.
Yeah, I think it was like all over the place. It was a big song.
Yeah. So then I watched it on video, and I remember really liking it, and I haven't seen it since. And I remembered it being just hilarious and wacky, and not full of sorrow and tragedy, like it really is.
It is, yeah. And yet, like, it's really still so heartwarming. Like, you don't feel bad at the end of it. You feel great after watching it, even though it is, like, really a very sad movie.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is funny, though. Yeah, because I don't know how you processed it when you were a kid, Lydia, but I don't even really remember how I processed death because, like, I watched this movie and just thought it was hilarious. But,
you just go into Robert Downey Jr. when you die.
Yeah. I would love that personally. Yeah, that's I love that idea of the afterlife. I think it was comforting to me to think of it like, because the afterlife in that is very simple and it's fair. And
I don't know.
Well, like, their death wasn't fair, but the idea that they got to resolve all their unfinished business, there's like a fairness to that. And even when they didn't, they did. Like with Julia. Like, I won't jump ahead, but like that, I don't know. It comforted me as a child. I think more than like the massive amounts of Catholic Church I was getting did, for sure.
This makes more sense.
Yeah.
It's a better theological system for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah. Rob, do you want to do the rundown of the plot of Heart and Souls?
Okay, I will. So it starts in the 50s. One of those years, 1955. I don't know.
No,
but
it's the
In there.
60s, isn't it? Isn't it the early 60s?
I thought it was the late 50s.
Oh, okay.
That's what
I don't know. It could be anyway. It's
I'm
the past.
I'm purely going by Bob Newhart's hairline. I don't know exactly.
Right? But we are introduced to all these people. There is a couple who is expecting their child. That's a very exciting event for a young couple. And there's also a woman who is working as a waitress at the Purple Onion where Bob Newhart is playing. And all these people, they have like things that are, I mean, not so much the parents with the newborn baby, but the rest of the people that we talk about, they all have these things in their lives. Like, they're complicated, right? Like this waitress, Kira Sedgwick, she is, living in the city, living that city life like we all love, but she has this beau from back home who comes and shows up at her job, which is a big dick move, and confronts her and is like, "Hey, baby, are you going to come back with me? Or I got this farm." And she's like, "I don't know. I'm watching Newhart,
Which I thought a cool thing about that was, did you notice the routine he was doing was the same one from Marvelous Mrs. Maisel that her husband stole? Like, I don't know a lot about Newhart,
Oh, really?
so that must be a really popular routine, but those things, this is the same thing. I noticed that.
I think they pulled it from his record. I think like the way the audio sounded was, I think like they literally pulled it from his record, which I thought was kind of neat.
Yeah, I thought they did a good job with that.
And they cast his son to play him. Because
Yeah.
I was
That's
looking
cool.
at this guy, I was like, this is a young Bob
It's
Newhart.
uncanny. It's uncanny.
For a second,
Did they
I
get
thought,
Zemeckis in here?
yeah, for a second I thought maybe they did like a CGI thing. I was like, no, that's crazy. Why would they
I
spend?
wouldn't let that.
What,
I
this-
thought it was CGI, which
Yeah.
is dumb now that I think of it.
It's like this movie cost $100 million because they really needed Bob Newhart. No, I had the same thought, and then I looked it up, and yeah, they got his son in there to be him. That's kind of nice.
It was a nice touch. It sort of grounds it in reality in a way, and in time in a way. Like it's a very specific thing. But yeah, so she has their thing. There's also Tom Sizemore. He's a petty thug who is breaking into this rich guy's house to steal back these stamps that he previously stole from this little kid. And he gets his ass kicked, and he barely escapes. But, that's Tom Sizemore for you. And we also have Charles Grodin. And he is a wannabe singer. He is auditioning for a piece of musical theater or something. And you can tell he's just very nervous. He's practicing in the hallway, and he lets the other guy go ahead of him. He just doesn't want to do it. And when he gets up to audition, he can't sing. He nopes out of there. It's sad. It's a tragedy. But maybe not a tragedy compared to the other things that are going to come up. But
But like that storyline, I think, is the most defined of the four. I think Milo and Charles Grodin get much more defined what they want to do and what they failed at during their lives than the two women do.
For sure. Yeah. And then finally we have Alfre Woodard, who is a mom. And don't get me wrong. She is an amazing mom. Also, like, she just did, Scrooge wasn't so far from this, and she also is like a great mom in that. Her like connection with like the Tiny Tim kids, like, so good. And then here, it's like it echoes in the same way. And you're just like, you're so. I wish you were my mom.
Yeah,
but
big mom energy.
I know we're all in our 30s, but I would not say no to an adoption if Alfre Woodard was
adopt
into
the whole
idea.
podcast.
Sure.
Or just like come to my house and teach me how to live my life, because I feel like she could do it better than me.
Oh yeah. I was thinking about this because she is such an amazing actress, and I feel like we were so lucky as kids to have been exposed to her in so many goofy movies. Like,
Yeah.
that she was probably too good for, but was in them anyway. And she's just wonderful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but all these folks, they end up taking a bus. And probably, like, the second worst thing that can happen when you're on a bus happens.
Wait, what's the other thing?
Well, you don't want to know.
Oh.
but if you've taken some of the TTC buses, you might know what I'm talking about.
Well, it's like a trolley kind of thing, isn't it? It's got like the...
Yeah, it's like an
cable
electric
thing.
bus.
Oh,
Yeah.
it is a trolley. Okay. I thought it was a bus.
It's a bus. It's a bus on the trolley lines. I think we used to have that in Toronto, didn't we?
I don't
For
remember.
a while. Anyway.
In the 50s, maybe.
Maybe. But yeah, they get on this bus, and we have all these people, all these different people from different lives. Their lives aren't going to intersect in some way. They're not going to crash, are they? Like the movie Crash, but with less racism. But there's a literal crash, and there's an accident, and everybody on the bus dies.
Well, wait, we got to talk about how this crash happens because
Yeah.
it's...
Oh, right.
It's hilarious.
David Paymer is the bus driver, and there happens to be somebody driving beside him, and they're getting a little bit handsy in the convertible, and he can't take his eyes away. And, he's in this elevated position because the bus is, like, really high, so he has a great view. So, I mean, you can't even really blame him, right? But regardless,
Wait, what? You can't blame him. He kills a whole bunch of people because he was gawking at these strangers.
I mean, I guess you can blame him. He does have to
God
drive the bus
literally
for
blames
500
him.
years.
Yeah. God blames him
God is a
for
bit
it.
judgy, but he has been known to be judgy. It's a little bit Old Testament in this movie, okay? But
I love how much he's enjoying it when, like, all that's really happening in that car is that woman is swatting that man's hands away. Like, leave me alone. And he's just, like, still going after her. And she's like, no, leave me alone. He should be yelling at that man.
this movie has so many examples of what not to do while driving, you know? There's this, there's, like, the looking at the person. There's Robert Downey Jr. on his cell phone. Come on! Haven't you seen that Herzog thing?
There's also like when he's watching the people in the other car and he's getting all excited, like he squeezes the steering wheel in a weird way. It's like, how is that
pervy.
like? What is that doing for you right now?
He goes full Newman from Basic Instinct, you know?
Yeah, he's all
talking
sweaty. Yeah,
he's like,
it's a weird way. Like anything could have happened. A dog could have run into the street and he had to swerve. Like, why would that be the thing you pick?
This movie is a bit pervy, as there's at least one other. I mean, there's a few other scenes. Basically, everything with Tom Sizemore, as well, is pretty pervy.
Yeah,
but
Tom Sizemore's number one thing he's mad about being dead is that he cannot get laid, which is hilarious to me.
I mean, that's a good rule of thumb for determining if it's a family movie or not. Number one, is Tom Sizemore in it?
Two, like, how pervy is he in it? Oh, very pervy? Okay, this is not a kid's movie.
Just, uncomfortably pervy. Still not a kid's movie, but hopefully the scars will heal. Yeah, but so they all die, and they become ghosts, and they're all sort of, in this world. They're standing on the top of the bus. The bus driver goes to heaven for some reason, but...
he did nothing wrong. He's
nothing wrong. But they all go into the body of this baby that has just been born in the car, the baby of the young couple.
Well, not in the body. They're just kind of like...
I think
attached.
they're in his body.
I think they're in his body.
In the beginning,
really?
because they close up on the baby and they're all talking and they're not around. So I thought the implication was like they started out being inside his body and then figured out how to like get out. Because then we don't see him till a year later at least. Mm-hmm. So
I do feel bad for this baby in this whole first act.
Oh, I felt terrible for Tom. Like, even thinking, I'll let you get to like what they were supposed to do. But if you think about what they were supposed to do to him as a child, it is terrible.
Yeah. Way to go, God. What kind of plan is this?
Come to think of it, this is as silly as Catholicism.
Yeah.
Now that I'm thinking about it.
Yeah.
It's like
I'm going back to the church.
Catholicism, but wacky.
Yeah.
Wackier. Yeah, but so Thomas, he grows up, he becomes a little boy, and they have a lot of fun with this kid. They're always playing with him, making him laugh. His parents think he's kind of crazy because he's laughing at nothing. They don't know what's wrong with him, but he seems to be having a nice time. And there's lots of stuff. They sing the Frankie Valli song, and it's very fun as they're growing up. Very touching. They're like his family. It's like it takes a ghost village, you know?
And they like him. Like they're fine with, weirdly fine almost, with being attached to him because he's their good cookie boy, as they say.
Mm-hmm.
You should put some molasses in that while the baby's bowels are stiff.
Why'd you get the bottles? Milo, please.
Yeah, I hate it when you do that.
Hey, relax. Thomas likes it, don't you?
No, you don't. No, I know you didn't. No.
Honey, when
Hey,
we...
man.
As soon as it's ready.
Relax, okay, Papa? I'm hoping to come back with all my parts in my new life.
That's weird, Milo.
And even Tom Sizemore, it's not so bad. He uses the kid to turn the pages of Playboy magazine for him so that he can watch it. Meanwhile, there's a toque over the kid's hat so he can't see it. I mean, you can see through the toque. The kid can see through the toque. The kid pretending not to see through the toque with his entire being.
I mean, that's not even really the issue. Though.
Yeah.
Yes.
It is wrong. Yeah, and there's also the scene where he tries to look under the teacher's skirt as she walks by. This is the second thing we see the ghosts do.
Yeah. The second thing we learn is that Tom Sizemore likes to lay down and let ladies walk over him as he's because he's a ghost and they can't see him, so he can see up their skirts. That's what he's doing with his afterlife.
Yeah, and all the other ghosts are like, "Oh, that's Tom Sizemore for you." No one is really delving into just how awful this situation is that they're stuck with this guy for eternity.
Yeah.
And then and he makes him go to the racetrack and place bets.
Which was, when I saw that, I'd forgotten that scene, and I was like, "There's no human way that there wouldn't be consequences to this child." How did he get to the racetrack? Is he leaving school?
Take the bus. There's nothing going to happen on the bus.
I know that it was the 60s or the 70s, but I feel like still someone's going to track that this 6-year-old child is alone at the racetrack. And then they brought that back, and I was glad. Yeah. Because I was I thought they were just going to leave that as a fun little vignette in the movie, but no. They came back to it, thank God.
Yeah, and it ends up being the thing that sort of, causes their, not downfall, but, it sort of screws them up because they decide that they should sort of not be around him anymore, that they're messing up. His parents think he's crazy. I mean,
it gets dark. The parents are talking about committing him because he's going to the racetrack and talking about these 4 strangers.
Yeah, I mean, he's lucky, they didn't give him, electroshock therapy or something like that.
Yeah, remember, Return to Oz, where Dorothy keeps
He could be in Oz!
Yes!
And the ghost could be, the lion, the cowardly lion.
Oh, yeah, the Tin Man, the Scarecrow. Yeah, that's
other guy.
What it is.
Yeah, there were 6 lions, I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
6 lions, yeah. But so they decide to sort of go radio silent and, be invisible to him and just sort of piece out of his life. And this understandably fucks the kid up. They're like, "Hey, by the way, we're leaving and you're never going to see us again." And he's like, "No, you're my family." And
the acting in that scene is amazing. That kid's tears, I felt like they in real life shot his dog on the set.
They were like, "Your mommy died."
It's the old Hitchcock routine.
Yeah. I felt like they must have done something terrible to that child because he was such a good actor. I felt so bad for him.
That little kid was the little kid in the Santa Claus movies.
Oh, wow.
Oh, I
Eric
love those.
Lloyd.
Okay.
Okay. Well, nothing as bad as the Santa Claus could have happened here.
Also a movie in which someone dies 10 minutes in.
Yes.
That
Kids
kid
movies
is cursed.
Be dark.
But yeah, the scene was so sad. I remember this movie just being wacky and funny and silly, and I cried twice 15 minutes into it. It was so sad. There was just, it was a ceaseless barrage of sorrow for me at the beginning of this movie.
And the writing is so good and so tight that it like pulls you in like that, where you're only 30 minutes in and you care enough about these characters to like cry.
Totally. And even like the Charles Grodin character who like seems, you think like the Alfre, you get the Alfre Woodard connection because like, she can't be with her kids and she's very maternal with him. But then Charles Grodin is like, I never had a kid and like I feel like I'm a father now. Like it was sad.
Yes, that part got me. I loved that they had Charles Grodin be equally as into it as both of the women were, whereas Milo was more like pretending to be cool about it, like I don't really care about this kid that much, and then in the end he's like, of course, it's gonna be hell to have to not be able to talk to him, and you're like, oh.
Yeah. It would, in a worse movie they would have had like friction between the ghosts, or one ghost not care until the very end or something. But they're all on board. It's a baby. How can you be mad at a baby?
Well, but so all this time passes and this baby, he grows up, and he doesn't just grow up to be anybody. He grows up to be Robert Downey Jr. So charismatic.
Okay, hold on, we got to talk about the transition between when he's a kid and when he's Robert Downey Jr., because this was the only other memory I had from watching it, and that is I had to rewind and watch this transition several times on tape, because it's like, you remember like computerized like morphing was really big in the early 90s? Yeah, they do a thing where you see like the sunglasses coming up as he's still a kid, and then it quickly morphs into Robert Downey Jr. Like, it's this really weird transition.
It is. It's jarring.
Yeah. Because it looks like the kid is like, he's crying because all of his best friends just left him, maybe forever. And then he, like, for like a second, it looks like the kid whips out a pair of sunglasses out of nowhere.
You have to like throw him on over his tears, over his hysterical tears.
Hey, don't, sometimes you just gotta get out your shades.
Ray-Ban for tears.
What's more manly than crying? Walk like a man, cry like a man.
I think they just like didn't want to make you too sad because it's a comedy, so they were like, no, it's fine. Right. He's Robert Downey Jr. now. He's fine.
Right.
Yeah.
Quickly morph it. We got to get past the sad part.
Yeah. So he is charismatic like Robert Downey Jr., but also sometimes kind of an asshole like Robert Downey Jr. I mean, he,
yeah.
He's like, he's got to watch out. He's got to watch out. And he's working for like this like bankruptcy company, like somebody who like buys up companies and then bankrupts them and all that stuff. It's, very predatory. It's ruining our economy as we speak and everything like that. But, and also he has a girlfriend, Elizabeth Shue, who he will not commit to. Why? He has some sort of abandonment issues. I don't know why.
I love that they really spelled that out at the end, but it was like the whole time you're like, yeah, I get it.
No kidding. I mean, I don't understand why these ghosts couldn't be like, okay, we are going somewhere in 3 months, and we'll hang out with you a whole bunch until then, but then we'll be gone for a while, and maybe we'll come back to visit sometime, but we're not gone forever. This isn't anything you need to be PTSD'd about.
Thomas, we feel the time has come for us to go away.
What? No!
Yeah, buddy. It'll be a lot better for you. Honest.
We don't want to, Thomas, but we have to go.
No, please, I'll do anything you want. I'll pretend you're not there, okay? It won't be a secret.
Oh, we can't do that, sweetie. It doesn't work. Don't cry. We're going to be right here watching over you. Just quietly.
You'll be okay, kiddo. You grow up, you forget about us.
No, I won't.
They come back and they're kind of like disappointed that he's, a gruff businessman and he's like firing Kurtwood Smith. They should be glad he's not like a serial killer because they messed him up so badly when he was a little kid.
Yeah, he thought he was insane for most of his life.
He could be the Zodiac.
Yeah. San Francisco.
Or he even says, like, I can just pretend that you're not real. And they're like, no, that won't work. They wrote that off so fast. And it felt like to me that was just someone said that, like they'd written the whole script and they turned it in. And one of the executives was like, why can't he just pretend they're not there? And they're like, I'm going to put in a line where he says that won't work.
Sorry. Doesn't work.
Fixed. But At one point, David Paymer, the bus driver, he rolls back in with his ghost bus, and he's like, hey, I'm here to pick you up. Sorry I was late. And so it turns out that these guys, the ghosts, were supposed to be completing their life's mission, unfinished business. You know, the Casper stuff that every ghost movie has now. They were supposed to be doing that stuff all this time instead of singing Walk Like a Man and getting the 4-part harmony. But they weren't. And so now it's time to, like, get in the bus and go to heaven, you know?
Yeah, but like Lydia, like you said, like, it makes no sense that they would... It's like, well, you have unfinished business. Here's a baby to help you complete it.
Yes, how is a baby? Well, he said that he was supposed to pick him up 15 years ago. So even a 15-year-old doing the things that they needed to do to resolve their issues would be insane. But presumably you're going to be doing that from the time he's like 1 to 15, like in there, you know, where he's supposed to like complete these tasks.
Gotta get those stamps
that are for adults. Yeah, like break into someone's house and find someone's children and sing in front of it. Like you could have done Charles Grodin.
Well, that one, yeah. Like, why didn't Chuck get it in there during like the Grave 5 Christmas concert or something?
Yes.
You can't even get a 15-year-old to like clean their room. You're gonna get him to like drive across the country and like locate family members for a ghost.
Yes,
yeah, it's
and
a terrible
like,
plan.
oh, and if he
this
won't
was
do
before
it,
cell phones, so
yeah, and the internet, like trying to find all that shit, and like they said you can take over his body, and I'm like, don't do that to a child. Don't take over a child's body and then like robot walk him around.
Wait,
why would that
he's
be
18?
Yeah, none of this. And also David Paymer's like, oh yeah, there was supposed to be an angel was supposed to come down and talk to you. They didn't do that. It's like, what?
Yeah, was there like a whole like B plot where this drunken angel is like, you know, reading like the map directions and being like, where was that guy?
And then the other thing that's weird is like, well, even if, okay, like if they finish their business and they're being shepherded to like, you know, presumably heaven, why would they send like the guy who murdered them because he was too horny to be driving a vehicle and the vehicle they died in to come re-traumatize them as they're being delivered to God? It seemed like just send anything else, anything.
Yeah,
send a car.
And I think that the story reason for that was so because he felt bad, so then they got extra time. He felt bad because he murdered them, but like.
Right.
That seems
but he was
like,
just belligerent the whole time. He was a jerk about
kind
it.
of a dick about it.
Yeah, till like the last minute. But I think you could send another car, God. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Like
or you can send anything. Send the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile. You're God.
Crazy idea. He's an omnipotent being. Why not just snap him away? He doesn't need to send a vehicle, right? This is the transportation thing is a problem of mortals.
Yeah.
Now you're getting into Kirk Cameron territory that I'm not comfortable with.
Yeah, we're not going to left behind these guys.
But so they now have to finish their thing. And so now they need to reappear to Robert Downey Jr., who hasn't seen them for years and, you know, has become like a bit of a dick in the meantime. So they try to get his attention. It's really hard. Eventually they do by singing the Frankie Valli song, and then they sort of tell him that he has got to help them finish all of their business while his relationship is crumbling. And you know, I mean, there's nothing really happening with his job, but they do make him look, they do make him sexually assault somebody in the boardroom.
Yes.
Yeah. And then, like, writhe around on the table like it's an exorcism.
Yeah.
Yeah. They are, again, ruining his life.
Yeah.
Also, I don't know what's up with these ghosts, but they seem fine when they're outside of Robert Downey Jr., but as soon as the female ghosts get into Robert Downey Jr., they become, like, hugely sexual and, you know, very undulating.
Well,
Dude, it's Robert Downey Jr.
I've thought about that actually, and I decided that I liked that performance because I was like, this is really bad, and I feel like Robert Downey Jr. is better than this at first. Like, whenever a ghost got into his body, he did a very, like, broad version of the ghost.
Mm-hmm.
But I was like, I think what he's doing is not being them, he's being people who haven't gotten to experience, like, being a person in a while. was the kind of way I looked at it. So like all the like hand stuff with Milo is just like, oh, it's fun to have a body and move around. Or like I love when Alfred Woodard is in him and he's like doing the big hand slaps and he's spinning around, and I felt like that was all just like, I have a body I can move. Like I kind of grew to love that weird performance.
That's fair.
doing.
That's fair. It is a good performance, even if like maybe it's not like what we'd expect from like the characters of the Ghost.
Yeah.
Sometimes it gets there, and he just has so much charisma. He's very likable on the screen.
Yeah.
But so he decides to help these people out, and so first they do the stamps one, knock that off easy. Plus, let's get Tom Sizemore out of there.
First
Rap
out.
on Sizemore.
Yeah, he is a creep, and we don't like him, so we don't have to talk about him anymore because
Nobody misses him when he's gone, but he rides the bus back home.
I was talking about the actor Tom Sizemore, but the character is also a creep.
Yeah.
I was listening to the director of this movie, Ron Underwood, who directed City Slickers, which we've talked about, and Tremors. There's no like special edition DVD of this movie or anything, but there's a podcast called, I think it's called the Rogue Commentary Podcast. And they get people to, Rogue Commentary. And they get people to record commentaries for movies that don't have DVDs with commentaries. So
that's cool.
Yeah, I'd never heard of it, but that's the neat idea. And so I was listening to Ron Underwood's commentary. And it was funny because he was talking about all these actors like, oh, Charles Grodin, he was so funny and so lovely to work with. Oh, Kira Sedgwick, I loved her. Alfred Woodward, I loved her. He was saying Kira Sedgwick. He's like, Kira Sedgwick,
oh my God,
so amazing. And he's like, I met her when we were making Tremors because...
Right.
Yeah.
She... Mrs. Kevin Bacon. Or, sorry, Kevin Bacon is Mr. Kira Sedgwick.
Yeah, I think that's
But
Mr. Closer.
She was pregnant during Tremors and had their baby while they were making Tremors. So like he already knew her, and it's like, and then he got to Tom Sizemore. He's like, and Tom Sizemore was a really talented actor around that. Oh man, yeah.
Was also there while we were making it. Next question, please.
Yeah. Well, so the next thing they do is they go and help out Harrison. They do they help him sing. Where are they going to do this? I mean, they are also laying the track work for everything else. They're, investigating where Alfred Woodard's kids are, and also Kira Sedgwick. They're going to go see John's farm, but she's sort of putting it off for some reason. But so they got to go and get Harrison to sing. And so they decide B.B. King concert is the place. So they sneak him in there and they get him on stage. And this is actually the same concert that Robert Downey Jr. was invited to go to with his girlfriend, Elizabeth Shue, who he's been disappointing over and over again. He missed their dinner. He's supposed to meet the parents, not Robert De Niro, but her parents. And it's a whole big thing. But so he ends up showing up at this B.B. King concert to sing the national anthem. I mean, Harrison is singing it through him. And, it's an amazing performance. The crowd goes wild. B.B. King joins in there. It's so good that after the performance, B.B. King has to change the title of his song to "The Thrill Is Back." Huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
But
I think this was really a smartly written scene because there's no other. You think like what would he possibly sing that just wouldn't get him thrown out immediately from this concert? And he comes out and sings, belts out the national anthem, and everyone just kind of stands and acts like.
Well, that's Robert Downey Jr.'s idea. They're like, how are we not going to get kicked off stage? And he just like nods at him, and he's like, yeah, I've got it. He goes out there and he says, please rise for the national anthem, and no one bats an eye, and you're like, that is genius.
It's great. And then B.B. King joins him.
B.B. King is so great. I love when he first shows up smiling. It's so great. He's amazing. And I love that song. And he's great. Yeah,
that's the high point of the movie for me, that scene. I thought that was the best part.
B.B. King walks through a fucking bus?
Yeah.
That's fucking awesome.
I saw B.B. King once in concert, and it was, those seats at Roy Thompson Hall behind the stage. Mm-hmm. I was sitting there, so you're kind of looking at his back for most of it, and he did not know we were there until the the curtain call, like when he was getting applause, and it was almost like a jump scare. Like he just kind of turned around and was like, ah! There's a whole crowd of people behind him.
You scared
Not ghosts
BB
again.
King. That's like,
I
you
did.
should talk about that more. You should put that on your resume. I frightened
Right.
BB King once.
Yeah.
Then I sang the national anthem, and it was cool.
Yeah. But Elizabeth Shue is not happy with Robert Downey Jr. bursting in on this blues man, which kind of makes her a hypocrite. Maybe Albert Collins would like a word with her, Adventures in Babysitting.
Oh.
Right?
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
I do.
You know?
Good
This
point.
is just a thing that you did in the late 80s, early 90s, was you just ended up singing with a blues singer for some reason. You know, it's a white person rite of passage, right?
If you're lost in the 80s with ghosts or children, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I do like that that he keeps running into her and she doesn't even really know what's going on with him. I mean, I kind of remembered this movie as being like more focused on him and his problems with Elizabeth Shue.
She's
like I remembered
barely
that
in
being
it.
the story. Yeah, she's barely in it, but it's also like, yeah, I'm glad that it's about like the ghosts and their unfinished business. Like I don't want it to be so much about him and his problems. Like I didn't even really know that like when we see him in the future, like when we cut to Robert Downey Jr., like he already knows her. He's already in a relationship with her. We don't have to see him. That's not the focal point of the story, which was not the way I remembered it. And it's so much better because of that.
Yeah, that was a major problem that I had with the movie, actually. I was surprised by how well it aged. You know, there's not a lot of racism, not a lot of gay jokes, but it's not great to women. And one of the ways in which I think it does a disservice to the character of Elizabeth Shue, because you don't understand why she would like that guy.
Oh, no, she shouldn't leave him. Yeah.
Yeah, like everything he does from her perspective is insane, and most especially like telling her that he's super busy at work and then showing up at the BB King concert and singing the national anthem. It's like, if you keep dating that guy, you're nuts. Like, that guy, something's going on with that guy. You need an explanation for that, right?
He's going to be singing all sorts of national anthems when, you know, you're expecting him to
Yeah.
be somewhere.
He said he couldn't
not
hang out with her.
red flag.
And then he just did a crime. Like, that's all he was doing was a crime.
Big
Well,
red flag.
I just like that it wasn't, you know, sort of rediscovering the fact that like it's the sort of inciting incident of this bus accident is just so emotional and traumatic. Like I was worried that it was building to a place where it was like the ghosts show up and like he's got relationship problems and then it's just a comedy of errors. So I was happy to see that, like, you know, the relationship stuff was kind of the B plot and the ghost stuff was kind of the A plot. But I agree, yeah, the Elizabeth Shue character is very undercooked, and
She is good, though. I mean,
she's always good.
yeah.
yeah. I mean, I would see a movie with her and Robert Downey Jr., you know, given more time to actually be together. They have like a certain charisma that matches each other. It's, you know, they're both very, you know, comedic actors. But yeah, so they got that done. Now they got to find Alfred Woodard's kids, and, you know, adoption. It's difficult. They're not going to find the records. And, you know, plus they keep on getting arrested. So that's a big problem. And there is this cop who we happen to see, and over again they keep running into him, and it couldn't be that. No. Because, you know, and the third time they run into him, it's a big thing, and he has to, like, comfort his child, and he starts singing this song that only she sung to her kid, and she's like, oh my God, have I been looking at my kid the entire fucking movie without noticing? I mean, I thought Alfred Woodard was such a good mom and had like all this maternal instinct and all that, and, you know,
he's an
Hollywood at
adult.
least
Yeah,
has led me to believe that she should know.
He was 6 years old the last time she saw him. I totally forgave that. That didn't bother
don't
me.
know.
And I love
I
the
guess
way that
so.
she figured out it was him. I thought was really sweet when he sang that little song. And she's like, I wrote that song. Like, nobody knows that song.
It's great. And I love, you know, like the scene where Robert Downey Jr. kind of talks for her. Like he doesn't try to convince him that like that there's a ghost there.
When he said, I never left you, I laughed and cried at the same time.
Yeah.
Look, I know that I sound absolutely nuts. Was your mother's name Penny Washington?
Really? This is mine! This is...
All right, now, what is this about?
You got two older sisters, right? Shirley and Diane? Am I right?
Who are you?
Is this some sort of sick joke? Did I lock your brother up or something?
Do you know where your sisters are?
No.
I do.
Damn, it was sweet, yeah, and they also, like, because he hugs them, and it's like, but they also, you know, recognize that would be a weird thing, and it was nice for Alfre Woodard, but weird for everyone else.
Yeah. And the other one kind of bummer is that, to me too, is that the two women, both of their their plot lines were heavily tied to, like, you know, they didn't really have any unfinished business. Like, Alfre Woodard just wanted to know that her children grew up okay. And Julia just wanted the guy to know that she would have said yes to marry him. Like, their plot lines were very heavily tied to men and family, whereas the two guys got more meaty parts, more stuff that they wanted to complete.
Well, also, it's kind of, like, questionable to have this, like, movie where this black woman is not allowed to take care of her kids and instead has to take care of a white kid, which is a thing that happens a lot. So it's like, all through the movie, I was like, fucking, why are you doing this to her, you know? Like,
well, the other weird thing is she has 3 kids, and, like, she tells the one kid where the other 2 kids are because they figured that out, but she doesn't get to see them. Like, why? Yeah. Couldn't they take a plane or... I don't know. It seemed weird.
Yeah,
that she saw one kid,
and it was her.
She's like, I only really loved that one.
That was what was funny to me too. Is she was like, "This is my favorite kid." He was, I think, the only named one, right?
Good kid.
The other 2 were just her girls, and then the boy was
girl one.
She didn't even get around to naming the other 2. No, but I don't know. That rang false for me. That I mean, I don't think any parent would be satisfied not, like, knowing where her kids were and not trying to see them. That seemed weird.
Yeah. But I did like the sort of, I mean, I like the note of melancholy, or like the sort of, there's something about, like, not getting everything that you want in a story. And so it does it with that character. And it also does it with Kira Sedgwick. So only the women character don't get what they want. The men, they get the stamps, they get to sing.
They go first. Both of the men go
all
first.
All of their petty concerns.
Well, especially, I think especially with the Kira Sedgwick one. I mean, I think maybe it's because I love Alfre Woodard, and I felt more... like, I related to her character the most, I think. Maybe also partly because I sent my kids to daycare for the first time in, like, a year this week, and it was, like, emotional watching the movie. I almost, like, left to go get them because I was like, because bus accidents happen all the time. But I do think, especially the Kira Sedgwick one, is weird because, like, when we see her, like, she's reluctant to go with this guy because she's, like, got these vague ambitions, and we don't really learn what they were. So her unfinished business is, like, she wants to go back and see that guy that was seemingly kind of holding her back from, like, accomplishing what she actually wanted, which is, we don't ever find out what that is.
I think she just wanted to live in the city. She doesn't want to live in the fucking podunk nowhere area, you know?
Yeah, that was kind of all they said, was she didn't want to be like her mom, and her mom never went anywhere and did anything, so she was working as a waitress in the city. Give her a dream.
She gets to see Bob Newhart during her shift. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
That's got to be worth something.
Yeah, I think she was, like, having fun, but I just wish they had given her a goal of any kind. Like, it could have been great. They could have made her want to be a fashion designer, and then, like, Robert Downey Jr. has to go model or something. Like, it could have been great if they did anything.
I thought, like, you know, maybe just because of the Marvelous Miss Maisel, I thought maybe, like, she was, like, working the room because, you know, she aspired to be a stand-up comedian, and that would be something that, you know.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Yeah, and then Robert Downey Jr. would have to, like, go by an open mic and, like, do the set that she never got to do.
Oh,
that would be great.
Really good, because it wouldn't make any sense coming from him. It would be all stuff about women from the 50s. And it, like, would bomb. That'd be hilarious.
So I'm reducing.
Yeah.
You know how it is.
Yeah, that would be great. And the whole scene with her at the end is weird too, because there's, like, she goes to, like, the farm that, like, that guy was going to buy, and then finds out that he's been dead for 7 years. And then, like, there's the moment where she's like, what was my unfinished business? And then she looks at Robert Downey Jr. and is like, it's you. And I, for a split second, was like, oh my God, are they in love?
Yeah, and when I was a kid and they hugged, I was like, kiss, 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 you know?
Well, wait, isn't it her, like, boyfriend comes from heaven and, like, inhabits Robert Downey Jr., and so, like, when they hug, it's her hugging her boyfriend, right?
Wait, what? I did not get that.
Okay, I mean, I swear, like, it's there. Like, he like, Robert Downey Jr. says, like, oh, wow, or something like that, as, like, this spirit is inhabiting him. And then she's like, oh, yes, I know it's you. And so she hugs him, like, earnestly.
Or maybe, is he the reincarnation of that guy? Because they do say... At one point, David Paymer is like, when he's grabbing Tom Sizemore or whatever, he's like, there's another life being born. We need a new soul.
Oh, that would have been a weird... No, because then that guy would have had
We need 4 new souls.
We need this creepy old man to be stuffed inside a baby stat.
Yeah, plus that, Kira Sedgwick's ex only died like 7 years ago. So
and did not have a good life. They noted that he had a difficult life and was sick, which I thought was like... Wow, dark. Like, I thought it would be like, oh, he moved on, he was fine, he had kids, you know, something like that.
And they found him in the apartment. Not like, you know, like, oh, he died in the hospital surrounded by his friends and loved ones. They found him, like, did he die naturally or did he kill himself because Kira Sedgwick died in a bus accident in the 50s?
Because this goddamn guy couldn't keep his eyes on the road because the other guy was getting handsy and...
Yeah. So dark, yeah. Weirdly dark ending. But still, you feel good because she got to hug Robert Downey Jr. and that hug is so satisfying. They, like, play the music and he spins her around and you're like...
It's all okay.
Yeah.
She also has the touched by an angel lighting effect before that as well, lit from the back with her, like, hair... Almost like a halo. It's, you know, I recognize that
She
anyway.
is good. I like her.
Yeah.
She's amazing. Kira Sedgwick's amazing, and, you know, I love the Kira Sedgwick, Kevin Bacon couple. They're like my favorite Hollywood couple because they're both amazing actors. What better actors can you think of as a couple than, like, Kira Sedgwick and Kevin Bacon? Yeah, you can't. I don't know. They're great, and I feel like they support each other really well. So,
I didn't know you cared so much.
Yeah,
I care about them.
And Kevin Bacon.
Relationship goals.
They're pretty cool. I like that they rotated movies when their kids were growing up too, and shows. I think that's cute, so they could both have careers.
Oh,
they're great.
Yeah. Well, okay, that's Heart and Souls. We're gonna take a quick break, and we'll be right back with some trivia.
Hey, podcaster, meet ACAST. We're the top independent podcast network for creators in the know. We empower you to develop your podcast idea, find your audience, and grow listener relationships wherever those listeners are. You'll also find a whole range of ways to make money, from membership plans for paying fans to our fully curated and creative advertising experience. Visit acast.com/network to find out more. Acast, for the stories.
We're back on Rewatchability, part of the E1 Podcast Network. We're talking about Heart and Souls, 1993 ghost comedy.
Mm-hmm.
Robert Downey Jr., some other people. So this movie was based on a student film.
What?
Did you guys know that?
No.
Whoa.
That's amazing because the script is so tight. I feel like the script is no fat in it at all.
Well, the original was a 16mm 9-minute film called Seven Souls. And it was about it was one guy and 6 ghosts, about a man accompanied through life by the souls of 6 people who had died the night he was born. It was by Gregory Hansen and his brother Eric.
From the Hansen brothers.
Yeah, they started a band later.
Mbop. Mbop was actually about the process of having your soul enter another person's body.
A lot of
subtext. The sound the bus made, yeah. And they, I guess, when they were in film school or coming out of film school, because the short was popular, they got an agent, and their agent suggested that they write a feature-length version of the movie, and it was sold to Universal. Now, I don't know the exact sequence of events, but the same agent that they had was also the agent of the two writers and the director, Ron Underwood. So I'm not sure. I know that he said he saw the script and loved it. I'm not sure if he saw the version that was rewritten, because Universal basically decided to make it a bigger budget movie and hire more prominent star talent, because those brothers were originally supposed to like direct it. They were like wanted to be like writer directors, and instead their story
They could have been the Coens.
Yeah, instead their story got taken and given to S.S. Wilson and Brent Maddock, who changed it around from what I can understand quite a bit. Originally it was more of a drama, and
I can see that for sure.
Yeah, and they lost 2 ghosts, made it 4 instead of 6.
That's a good idea. I think it would be way too full with 6.
How many people can they fit on a car, you know?
Yeah. Oh, I love that. That was a good little detail where they're always riding around on top of the cars. Yeah, I would do that if I was a ghost, for sure.
That would be the reason why you were a ghost.
Yeah.
So I felt kind of bad for those guys, because those were also, or this movie was the only other feature that they're credited on IMDb. So it seemed like this was probably really exciting and then very disappointing when it was taken away. But also, I was listening to that commentary from Ron Underwood, and I was reading this backstory. I was like, oh, that kind of sucks, those poor guys. And then listening to him talk about it, he just seemed like a really nice guy too. And he was talking about how the script came along for him at an important juncture in his life, where he said his family had suffered a tragedy where he, I guess, had a young daughter, and a friend of hers was biking over to their house and was hit by a car and killed.
Oh, wow.
Oh, geez.
And so he said he was really, struggling to make sense of that tragedy. And he said this script came along, and he just he said like it actually, making this movie helped him in a way.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, which all seemed very genuine, and yeah, he sounds like a nice guy. So
yeah, I can see that. Like I said, it has that kind of somewhat comforting idea where I guess what I like about it is the afterlife looks like our life, which is a comforting idea, right? Like we know what a bus is. And, in the Catholic Church, it's like, yeah, angels are big wheels with eyes. And you're like, I don't want to see that. I want a bus. Just a bus full of friendly people. That sounds much nicer.
Buses have wheels. They could have eyes.
No,
just give me a horny character actor on a bus, and
That's what I want. Yes.
That's my idea of heaven. Yeah.
So I thought, there's not a lot of trivia about this movie, but I thought here would be a fun question to throw out, and that's, can you name any other movies, features that were adapted from other student films?
Ooh.
Well, what's that George Lucas one that he adapted a student film?
Yeah,
that counts, right?
THX 1138? Is that
that's the one.
That was the first one I thought of. I found 2. I'm sure there's lots, but I found 2 others. The other one is
Whiplash.
I don't think that was a student film.
Oh, close enough.
That movie 9, like that animated movie.
Oh, okay.
That was a student film apparently, and the movie House Party began as a student film.
Okay, that makes sense.
The student film was artier.
So, like I said, this movie was rewritten, or as Ron Underwood called it, he called it an adaptation, basically, of that original script by S.S. Wilson and Brent Maddock. They were the 2 screenwriters that rewrote this movie, who had written Tremors with Ron Underwood before. And right before this movie, they had written another ghost comedy. Can you guys name that ghost comedy they wrote?
Ghost comedy? God, there aren't a lot of those. Is it Ghostbusters?
It wasn't Ghostbusters, no.
Frighteners?
This was just a few years before. I think it was 1990.
1990 ghost comedy.
Ghost Dad?
I'm just gonna...
It was Ghost Dad.
Oh no!
You got it.
Oh no!
Yeah, which is also a movie where Yeah, it also stars a horrible person, but was also a movie where the mechanism by which the ghosts happen was really weird. Because remember in that movie, it was like, is he going to fall down the stairs or is he going to get hit by a car? And the way he becomes a ghost is he gets driven off of a bridge by like a Satanist who's driving a cab.
Right.
Like it was the
Isn't
same
there
thing.
a bunch of pervy stuff that happens too in that movie?
Yeah.
Yeah. Ghosts.
So this guy was big on writing pervy ghosts.
So then this ghost can go into the girls' locker room.
Yeah, that's what it feels like. He's like, hey, you know what I'd do if I was a ghost?
And then the ghost goes through the underwear drawer.
And the only other question I had for you was, there is one other movie that I could find where Robert Downey Jr.
Oh, I know
and
this
Elizabeth
one. I know what
Shue
you're
are
going to
both in.
say.
Okay.
I can guess the trivia you're going to do.
What's the question?
No, okay, go ahead. Sorry. I bet I can guess what he's going to ask because I thought of this before I came on. There's another movie where Robert Downey Jr. plays the reincarnated spirit of a girl's dad.
Oh,
that one?
I was going to get into that.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that's not what I was going to say right now. What I was going to say is, what's the other movie he's in with Elizabeth Shue?
Oh, okay. I don't even know that.
Rob, you got it?
No, I saw it, but I forgot.
It's Soap Dish.
Oh, yeah. I forgot that she was in that. Elizabeth Shue was.
I really want to talk about what you were going to talk about, Lydia, because looking back at a lot of the reviews at the time of this movie, a lot of them were like, hey, this is a pretty good movie. The last ghost reincarnation movie that Robert Downey Jr. was horrible. The last movie he did was called Chances Are.
Yes.
And have you seen it?
I haven't seen it. I've read about it, and I've been meaning to watch it because I was like, wow, I can't believe that happened, A. B, I can't believe Robert Downey Jr. is like typecast in these weird ghost reincarnation roles, you know? Like it's the kind of thing where an actor gets a really niche role and then another one immediately, like pretty much right in a row. I feel like he did those two. But I know that the plot of it is he like basically, this girl's dad dies and is reincarnated as a guy that she then gets in a relationship with.
Ew.
Yeah, who is played by Robert Downey Jr.
Ew.
Yeah.
Well, it's like it's Christopher McDonald is the guy who dies.
Shooter McGavin.
Shooter McGavin, that's right. And and exactly. He dies, comes back as Robert Downey Jr., who like starts up a relationship with, I think it's Mary Stuart Masterson is the daughter,
Sounds
and
right.
then like somehow gets his memory back and remembers he had this past life where he was her dad.
Yes.
But then he
Who
also
writes that?
remembers some guy, probably the same guy.
Harry
who wrote Ghost Town.
House and Randy House.
I just felt like, hypothetically, why of any story you could write, do you choose to write that one?
Yeah, they started that story with a blank page.
Yeah.
and
Could have
came
been
up
anything.
with that.
Could have been any movie. And they made the movie where she dates her reincarnated dad.
But also, Sybil Shepherd plays the mom. So when he gets his memory back, he like starts hitting on Sybil Shepherd and convinces her that he was her husband. And then like she realizes that she's really in love with Ryan O'Neal. And then I have not seen it, but I was reading the Wikipedia at the end. An angel comes and gives Robert Downey Jr. a shot that removes his memory, so that at the end he's able to hook up with Mary
his
Stuart
daughter.
Masterson, who's his daughter.
Yes.
No. And by
Is
the
this
way,
a French film?
and by the way, Sybil Shepherd will still remember that. Like, no one's wiping her memory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The solution to the movie is incest.
Yeah. It's like, your problem is incest. The solution, also incest.
Well, maybe Robert Downey Jr. just wanted to do a ghost comedy without all the incest.
Yeah, maybe that's why he took it. He was like, you're not going to believe the last ghost comedy I did.
I mean, how much incest we talking on this one? Like low to medium?
Because
I mean,
I'd be more comfortable with none.
It's a guy forcing a child to leaf through a Playboy, but I guess that's okay compared to the last one.
Yes.
And this movie got there was a whole article about how the director was not happy that it got a PG-13 rating, specifically for the scene in the bus and the car at the beginning.
Well,
I mean, if you're talking about this movie compared to any Crash, I mean, maybe we should compare it to the Cronenberg one because of how it all started. He said, "It's so bizarre. I've always thought the ratings thing was a good concept. I have little kids, and I go by it in terms of knowing if something is suitable for my kids. But the experience I had on this film made me sort of wonder about the values of the ratings board. I really feel this film is appropriate for families, and I would certainly take my kids to see this film."
I mean, tweak it, make it 30% less horny, and I think it's fine for families.
That scene where the man is groping the woman in the convertible is my son's favorite scene. And my wife's.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, that's the thing, was where, like you said, they could have written anything. Like, I don't understand. It was so inconsequential to the plot. Yeah, and then it's the guy who basically becomes is working for Jesus or something. I don't know.
I think that the idea is that's his purgatory. And I think the reason they had him be pervy at the lady was because it's like, well, that makes the wreck his fault. So then we get him back because he's driving the bus for eternity as his purgatory. But you didn't have to make it that horny.
He's working directly for God.
Yeah.
He keeps saying I don't, you want me to stall him, the big guy?
Well, he also has powers because he makes, maybe this is what you were thinking, because he makes, this is what you were thinking when you thought that the ghost of the boyfriend inhabited Robert Downey Jr. David Paymer at the end makes Keira Sedgwick solid. So she can hug him because she's like, "I wish I could touch you," and he's like, "I know." And then David Payner kind of looks up to God and makes her so that she can hug. So they can actually hug.
Yeah.
I like mine better. No,
honestly, I
that's
think yours is better too. But I don't think that's implied. I think it is implied that David Paymer has a direct line to God, which is weird now that you say it, and gets God to briefly make Keira Sedgwick mortal again.
This is God's world. God is the horny bastard.
Yeah.
He's the one causing this problem. He's blaming the bus driver. Take some responsibility, Lord.
Well, and at the end, I feel like they're kind of like, and it all worked out. Like, that was how it was supposed to work out. Keira Sedgwick was always supposed to help him.
Just
and I'm like,
God's wisdom.
Yeah, but if they hadn't put the ghost with him as a kid, then he wouldn't have relationship problems.
Nah.
He wouldn't need Keira Sedgwick. Like, this isn't a full circle ending like you think it is.
No, and I would 100% trade those 5 lives for one maybe not great relationship.
Yeah.
Maybe I would rather have him not be with Elizabeth Shue and don't orphan those children.
Yeah, I think I would be fine
It was
with
an
that.
either or, and God made a decision. He's like, this couple is too good. They have to be together, and if people have to die, I'm going to make that happen.
Maybe that's why we don't see the faces of the couple in the car, because they weren't really there. It was like a mirage that God contrived to cause the bus crash so Elizabeth Shue wouldn't leave Robert Downey Jr. for being mean.
So he basically did entrapment on the bus driver so he'd have to work for him for 500 years.
Yes, it was spiritual entrapment, which I think is a lot of how religion works. I'm not totally clear on it, but
basically.
God's always doing a sting.
Well, let's wrap it up by going around and deciding if we thought it was rewatchable. Lydia, what about you? Did you think it was rewatchable this time? Did it hold up watching it now?
Yeah, 1,000%. Like I said, it felt good after watching it. I thought there were some small holes in the script, but overall really tight script. It did everything right when it needed to do it. Had those big juicy moments where each ghost gets a send off at the right times in the movie, so it's not boring. I loved it. Very rewatchable.
All right. Rob, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, I hadn't seen it before, but I was entirely delighted by this movie. Yes, there are flaws. Yes, there are problems. Yes, there are things that are stupid and backwards about this movie, but it has so much, are you with me here? Heart and soul that it was so great to watch, and it made me feel good. And I mean, I think Alfre Woodard is just so amazing in this movie. I think her character sort of pulls it for me emotionally, and it's so I don't know, it's a really great performance. Everybody in this movie is really good, and Tom Sizemore's around too. But but everybody else is like amazing. Like they're all like really great actors. Like they're the best at what they do. Charles Grodin is so great, and he's not even doing like the grumpy, annoyed at everything shtick that we talked about in Beethoven, and that he did so well in so many other great
he's
things.
so sweet in this.
He is a sweetheart. He's a sweetheart, and. Yeah,
Don't say Grodin juice again. I can't take
it. He's full of Grodin juice. It's no, I really liked it. I'm so glad that we watched this movie because I hadn't seen it before, and I will watch it again because I thought it was just a lovely movie.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. Like we said, there are problems. There are really weird things about it, but I did kind of love it. It was so earnest, and looking back at a lot of the reviews, they were comparing it to a lot of older movies like Capra movies and a lot of the kind of like ghost comedies of like the 40s and stuff. So it does kind of feel like a throwback and just a sweet story. I mean, I cried like 8 times watching this movie, and I am dead inside all the time. And I was just watching this like on a laptop, and I found it so affecting and so funny. And also, like, I have also really cooled on the Robert Downey Jr. persona, like having seen him do that in so many movies for so long. Thought I was sick of Robert Downey Jr. and to go back and look at this and remember that he is a good actor. And it's not even like that it's that demanding of a role, but it's a movie where he is not called upon to be like the quippy smart aleck guy. He's just kind of a guy, and he's charming and I really liked it.
It would be great for him to do more of that, instead of like Doolittle.
Yeah. And, make it more available. I don't think it's on Blu-ray. I think it did get a DVD release, but it's also not streaming a lot of places. So
in the U.S., I had to purchase Stars for 2 months to watch it, which it was 99 cents to purchase 2 months of Stars, so I didn't care.
Hey.
But I was like, Stars really is the only place that has this?
It's weird, yeah.
I read it wasn't given like a very wide release.
Really?
Is that?
Oh.
Yeah. I don't know. Not everywhere, I guess.
I just remember like the trailers being played constantly. So I don't know. Maybe this will be our least popular episode because no one apart from the 3 of us has ever seen it. But I remember it being fairly big, and I hope if people haven't checked it out that they do. Because it is lovely.
Don't go through your life not seeing this movie and saying what you mean to it. Like Kira Sedgwick with her boyfriend, but for a movie.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That guy kind of sucked, though.
Yeah.
He did.
She was a turd. She should have went out with Bob Newhart.
Oh.
That would have been a twist. All I wanted to do was date Bob Newhart. Go kiss Bob Newhart for me, Robert Downey Jr.
Oh, gee, this is awkward.
Movie should have ended with Robert Downey Jr. waking up in bed with Kira Sedgwick. Well, that's rewatchability for this week. Lydia, thank you so much for coming on the show and suggesting this movie. That was a lot of fun. Where can people find you on the internet?
You can find me on Twitter at Lydia. Or I have a weekly column on the Patreon-run comedy site 1-900-HOT-DOG. It's the numbers 1-900 and then the word hotdog.com, which is where most of my comedy is these days.
All right. And you can find us on Twitter at Rewatchability, Facebook.com/rewatchability. You can like and subscribe on your favorite podcast app. And I was going to say buy a t-shirt, but I just our t-shirt just got taken down.
Yeah, our logo is infringing.
Oh no.
I think it's because in like the background of the logo, you can see a little RoboCop because we got a takedown notice from MGM.
That's hilarious.
It's been up there for like 3 years or something, but I guess we've been raking in the several dollars a month that MGM does not want us to have.
They have to feed that lion.
Yeah, so don't go buy a t-shirt right now because we have to figure that out. But you can, like I said, like or subscribe, and patreon.com/rewatchability. And until next time, keep your eyes on the road, bus drivers.
Yes, Jesus. Are you listening to a podcast right now?
Acast powers the world's best podcasts. Here's a show that we recommend.
Hey, this is Cenk Uygur, host of The Young Turks, part of TYT's podcast network. We're the world's most popular progressive news show online. Not a big deal, I'm just saying. And we deliver an uncensored, unapologetic version of the news you won't get anywhere else. And that's really true. You should definitely check it out. So listen to The Young Turks on the Acast app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Acast recommends.